And which business model is most vulnerable tomorrow?
Well, I think Mark Zuckerberg is going to attract a lot of attention because of election issues. But when you talk about vulnerability, I think that all of these companies are anxious not to say too much, because don't forget, they've all moved their earnings calls to Thursday. So they don't want to, they're in this sort of odd kind of quiet period where they shouldn't be saying too much. So it's very interesting. I think that this is going to be a time where you're going to hear more from the congressmen about what's on their mind. And since it's election season, that's probably likely the most prominent talking points you're going to see.
Right, that's a good point. Zuckerberg, though, he's expected to argue that, you know, TikTok has become a genuine competitor and perhaps paint Facebook as a national champion because TikTok, of course, is owned by Chinese ByteDance. Is that going to work? How do you think that lawmakers will respond to that?
Well, one of the things that I think that is a good point. Let's talk about what's happened since in the past few months, since, or for that matter, a year since the House started looking at this. You have TikTok, and you also have Zoom. So people who say that there isn't room for competition in the tech area, that's not really true. If the purpose of the House hearing is to think about new ways of dealing with antitrust, then the question is, what's competition and what's consumer welfare, all right? Now, let's talk about, you had COVID out there now. So people are using these platforms for COVID and contact tracing. They're using it for education. They're using it for civil rights and protests and locating things. They're looking for entertainment. So these platforms are actually more important and more useful to people now than ever before. So, and they're using it in an array of different ways that people haven't seen. So, to the extent that people were concerned about the fact that there was a one-size-fits-all bottleneck, I'm not sure what we've seen in the past few months shows that. And that's an interesting time.
Now, Mozella, are you arguing, in effect, that the state of competition across all of these companies is fine in the sense that this is sort of the optimal state of health, both for the consumer and for new ventures, new startups with great technology to have, a great opportunity to choose to either get acquired or become independent public companies?
I think that what the antitrust law has to look at is what constitutes consumer welfare, whether consumers are better off or not. And each of these companies offers something a little different in that regard. So Facebook is still a free service, okay, and people can get to it. They offer a different kind of platform than others. Then the question becomes, who gets access and under what circumstance? And for some people, they want to try to argue that some of these companies act like public utilities, but that's not exactly how they've been treated. And the fact that you have other competitors in the marketplace, not in the United States, whether it's TikTok or for that matter, places where Facebook and Google can't operate, like in China and other markets.
Right.
It's a different competitive landscape than what some people might want to believe.
But why should consumer welfare be the standard if this is Congress who has the opportunity to make law? And in this case, is it really consumer welfare or is it advertiser welfare? Because the advertisers are the customers. They're the ones who are paying, if you're looking at Google, if you're looking at Facebook specifically. So should it be customer welfare and ecosystem welfare? And is that different than the way kind of historically the standard has been used?
The standard has always been consumer welfare. Or is the consumer better off or not? If you look at advertising, the market for advertising, if anything, what the pandemic has done is it's accelerated a trend so that to the extent that there was a move toward online advertising as a principal way that people get their products to market, that's accelerated. And the question is whether it's ever going to come back to what it used to be on the offline space. So to the extent that people are saying that that it hurts online advertising, actually what you see is it's an increasing trend, not a decreasing trend. But I do think it's a legitimate concern on some of these platforms to talk about who gets access and under what terms and conditions, and they're fair. And in other words, do consumers get to see everything that's out there? Now, I think those are legitimate concerns. But if there's going to be a change in the idea of whether consumers are better off or not, and that's the standard, then you're going to have to look at a lot of other issues, whether it's content-based or, for that matter, other different sectors other than tech. If it's not consumer welfare, then what is it?